Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coproduce Care, #Care Uncut, and Happy New Year. This is the first live stream that we've done in the 2022, and really looking forward to discussing with you a fantastic topic, and that is the Adult Social Care Reform White Paper. So it's got a big title, it's got a big name, but does it live up to its name? Does it live up to the hype? We'll be going through that with our fantastic guests. My name's Sophie Chester-Glynn and I'm director at Coproduce Care. And later on, I'll be delighted to be joined by a fantastic panel. We've got Belinda Schwehr, the CEO of CASCAIDr, Melanie Weatherley, the co-chair of the Care Association Alliance, Raina Summerson, CEO of Agincare, Jane Townson, CEO of Homecare Association, Isaac Samuels, who is the advisor for the National Co-Production Advisory Group and is a person with lived experience who employs his own staff. So really looking forward to this discussion. But I just want to check with you, anyone who's listening, if you're listening live or on playback, if you think that social care needs a bit more of airtime, proper airtime, so people can really deconstruct some of the issues that we are dealing with, then please like this live stream. Just click thumbs up on wherever you're watching us, whether it is on Facebook, on YouTube, you might be looking at it on Twitter. Believe it or not, we're even on Twitch. I don't even know what Twitch is, but we are streaming there live now. Thumbs up for us. Let us know if you think social care needs a little bit more airtime. And if you want to help us get that airtime, then just click share on wherever you're watching us. Again, just share it with your followers, with your network, and just let people come in and join the conversation, because we have worked really hard on getting this panel together. And also they're giving up their time on a Monday morning when they really don't have the time to give up. So we are really grateful and looking forward to this discussion. But while I've got your attention, I'm just going to hog the space a little bit and encourage you to just check out some of the stuff that we have going on at Coproduce Care. So over the last couple of years, we've been doing a lot of live streams, and we've tried the best that we can to give a voice to people who need a voice, maybe aren't heard as much on our web page and also on our live streams. So you can best place to access us is on YouTube, which is where you'll find most of our live streams. And if I do a very quick share now, you can see some of the stuff that we've been up to. So hopefully this will work. I haven't prepped this with the team, so they're probably thinking, what on earth is she doing? So these are some of the videos that we've done. Everything from what we're doing now, which is the reflections on adult social care. We've done one on the out of sight report, which has over 13,000 views, as you can see. We've had everything from politicians, discussions with politicians. We've also done a Q&A on vaccinations earlier last year. So there's a lot going on there, and I would absolutely encourage you to get involved and to just join our movement in trying to get more voice and recognition for the social care sector. So that is a lot of what we are doing at Coproduce Care, but I want to draw your attention a bit to the Adult Social Care Reform White Paper, which is what we're going to discuss today. And just very quickly, I want to just bring up a video of some of the highlights of the White Paper, which was presented to Parliament just a month ago, actually, in December. So we'll just play a very short video on that.
The reform of social care in this country is an issue that has been ducked for far too long. But we'll do whatever it takes on this tough challenge, and we will do this to get it right. Today's white paper is an important step on our journey to giving more people the dignified care that we want for our loved ones, setting out important changes that will last for generations and stand the test of time. As a government, we are determined to get this right. I'm determined to get this right, so we can build the healthier, fairer and more caring country that we all deserve, and I commend this statement to the House.
Really, Mr. Speaker, is that it? Yeah. Now, there are some things the Minister said that Labour's been calling for some while and which we support, like improving the housing options for older and disabled people and the potential for technology to improve standards of care. But there are two central flaws in this government's approach. Ministers have utterly failed to deal with the immediate pressures facing social care as we head into one of the most difficult winters on record. And they have failed to set out the long-term vision and more fundamental reforms we need to deliver a care system fit for the future.
So there's a bit of a taster for you when it was debated in Parliament a few weeks ago. And I'm going to bring in our guests now, just so you can see who we have speaking with us today. So if we can bring everybody into the studio. Amazing. So what I'll just ask you all to do very briefly is just introduce yourselves, and then we're going to head over to Belinda then, just to give a little bit of a legalese view on the white paper as it is. But I'm just going to go through everyone on my screen as you are. So Raina, can I start with you? We just need to unmute you. Give us a sec. There you are.
Been one of those days. Thank you, Sophie. First one of the evening. Hi, I'm Raina, Summerson, Group Chief Executive at Agincare. So we're an independent social care provider with lots of different range of services, home care, living care, care homes, supported living. So kind of seeing things from a different perspective, from people drawing on services and delivering. Most of our work is commissioned with local authorities and CCGs. So kind of good experience of that. We have a small percentage of self-funded, but that's a small part of what we do. And we work with across as kind of northernly as Harrogate down across the south. So quite a good spread of kind of local authority behaviours and CCG behaviours. And we have about 3,500 team members working with us.
Brilliant. Thank you. So a care provider perspective from you this evening. Thank you. And Isaac.
Good afternoon, or good evening, should I say, everybody. I'm Isaac Samuels, and I am involved in lots of organisations, but I'm someone that draws on adult social care and has had the benefits of receiving social care, the social care making a massive contribution to my life. Without social care, I wouldn't be able to be here today, so that's me.
That's a really nice, positive message. Thank you so much, Isaac. And Melanie, can I come to you for a quick intro?
Hi, I'm Melanie Weatherley. I'm the co-chair of the Care Association Alliance, which brings together usually small and medium-sized providers in different locality groups. We represent more than 7,000 providers, and in my day job, I provide domiciliary care as well.
Wow, another extremely busy person. Thank you for that, Melanie. And Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Townson, Chief Executive of the Homecare Association. And in my previous role, I was a provider CEO, and we did home care, supported living for people with disabilities, housing with care, and operated about 30 care homes. So also have experience across different settings like Raina.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Jane. And I should say to anyone watching thinking, oh, why haven't you got more people who draw from health and social care? We did have that in the plan, but obviously we're in COVID times, so people weren't able to make it. So we tried to make it as diverse as possible. And Belinda, can I come to you next?
Hi, my name's Belinda. I run a charity called CASCAIDr, and it provides legal advice to people who are struggling to get what their legal rights should entitle them to under the Care Act. And we give some advice about continuing healthcare as well. My background is as a lawyer, but as a CEO of a charity, I'm providing informal advice, not offering to sue the pants off of anybody at this very moment.
Okay, that's always good to know. Thanks for that, Belinda. Okay, I'm going to come to you first, Belinda, actually, just to get your rundown from a legal perspective, some of the things that you maybe, if you have any positives about what was announced in the white paper for social care, and also any caveats, any highlights that you have you think we need to watch out for.
Well, as ever, the aspirations of the white paper are choice and control and person-centered care, personalisation, good quality, even outstanding quality in what is commissioned by the public sector, and that people can find social care and that it is accessible to them. The government has been scrutinised for saying that that last bit is really all about the charging system and the cap on care costs. And there was a hoo-ha about that before Christmas. But the rest of the white paper is all about putting money back into the system, money that's been taken out over the past, say, 15 years. But some of it is badged as new money for new things that nobody's ever thought of before. Other stuff is clearly stuff that people have been going on about since, 1995. And on that footing, I have to say that I think that it is a tired white paper rather than full of something that people who are really initiated into the system would think would make much difference. Some of it is positively ridiculous. I mean, there's a big section on advice and information, which doesn't tell the public that there's already a local authority duty to provide, or at least to establish and maintain, a system of advice and information. And one very easy thing to do, rather than spending millions on having a national website, would be to just effectively rewrite the guidance the way it used to be written in the 1990s, with references to case law that made people realize that we are talking about adult services, legal rights to care and to an appropriate amount of care, as opposed to the system in the NHS with which social care is supposed to be integrating, where rationing stuff is perfectly all right and not illegal. That's not the legal bottom line under the Care Act. And yet nobody from government or the DHSC will actually say that that's a rotten basis for integration, a different legal framework.
Right, thank you for that. I'm just going to go back a little bit, and so people can understand some of the principles that are going to be set out in the white paper, and then we could just talk about anything specific. So the 3 objectives: people have choice, control and support to live independent lives. Secondly, people can access outstanding quality and tailored care and support. And thirdly, people find adult social care fair and accessible. So this is the accessibility point. I suppose they're driving the website and information. Or of course, there's a lot of money being spent on a website. Could that be spent better elsewhere? But also there's a theme around commissioning and local authorities. So changes to commissioning, local authorities structuring accessibility. And I think we're definitely going to come on to this a bit more in a minute. But 30 million to help local areas innovate around support and care they provide in new and different ways. Are they new? Are they different? That's a good question, I think, that you're trying to pose there, Belinda. A new website and 70 million then to increase the support offer across adult social care to improve the delivery of care and support services. In terms of the kind of overarching principles, do you feel from a legal perspective that there's anything in there that's going to really make a change? Or are you worried that there isn't much detail, or it's just basically going over pumping money into things that we already have available?
I think that the background to putting money into a national website to tell people what the system is really on account of Middle England being seduced into putting their care needs through adult social services in councils for the benefit of getting their progress to the cost cap of 86,000 started. If you think about what that's going to do, there are hundreds of thousands of people in this country who really don't think social services is for them. They don't know what it is. They think it's part of the benefit system. And they would imagine that if they had a crisis, they would go and buy care. But the changes to the way the charging system is going to work is going to make Middle England, people who are not that poor, not that impoverished, and people who are of any age over the age of 18 have an incentive to put their services, their needs, through social services. And local authorities have been busy making staff redundant for the last 10 years. They're going to have to get them all back again to do the assessments. So, to my mind, this is what the government is seeing as the need for a proper website that tells people what the system is. There's too much information on the internet for people to choose from when they're in a crisis. But I would have thought that the money would be better spent just getting the Citizens Advice Bureau network to start giving advice on adult social care. It's not a subject that CABs do. And that is astonishing in 2022. I'm sure all anybody would have to do is give them 5 million to write the manual, and then everybody would have a source of advice to go to.
And I'm going to ask this to our other panelists in a minute, but I'm interested to hear from like a legal perspective. So there's going to be a new duty under the care, I think it's drawn from the Care Act Part 1, for this oversight that CQC will have, the Care Quality Commission, the adult social care regulator, to have over the way that local authorities are dispelling their duty, I suppose, in terms of providing social care and meeting certain objectives. I'm not 100% sure how that will work, but there is a little bit of detail in there, but not huge amounts. I suppose
Can I say something about that?
Yeah, I want your view on it.
Yes. Even in the Care Act at the moment, there is an option for the Secretary of State to use directions and to cause interventions to be made into how local authorities are discharging their duties. And a sort of run up to that wicket is asking CQC to investigate. So really, all that is being done is moving that up a level. But the best example of why I think this is a complete waste of time is that last week 49 councils announced that they were not able to meet their Care Act duties, that they were now rationing and prioritising in ways that even they believe to be unacceptable. And CQC says nothing about that. The Department of Health says nothing about that. And that, to my mind, conveys a message that CQC is the handmaiden of the Department of Health and a regulator of care providers, not expert in the public law responsibilities owed to members of the public. And so, for me, this is fatuous and simply trying new things out. The appeal system that is mentioned too. There's no appeal in adult social care, and the white paper makes it clear that there is no current plan to create one. So it seems to me that it is just waffle.
Okay, so sorry everyone, I should have given you some warning. I just wanted to add everyone back in. Now, really interesting views there, Belinda. I'm going to just open up that particular question about CQC and the extra oversight they're going to have on local authorities, because we have so many representatives of care associations, care providers here. When I first realized that was going to be a thing, I thought, yes, great, this absolutely needs to happen. We need to have some oversight on our commissioning. We need to have more resources into training and supporting local authorities, and we need some kind of standardization in the way that local authorities support or provide or pay for care, because many providers who are providing care for local authorities across the country, there's just so much variation, it's really can be quite unworkable. So, I mean, on that specific point, what are people's initial views on that part of the white paper? Maybe I'll come to you first, Jane.
Thank you. Well, we've been saying for a very long time that purely focusing on providers isn't going to drive necessarily improvements in quality, because the reason that some providers may struggle is if they're commissioned to do, say, 15-minute visits paid by the minute on fee rates of £15 an hour, how can you possibly deliver outstanding care? And, you know, you're told what to do by the local authority. So I think in principle, the idea that it isn't just down to providers to ensure good quality is a good one. I think where this whole proposal falls down is that CQC has no enforcement powers. So all they can do is, in this particular regard, they don't have any enforcement powers. So all they can do is write advisory reports. And how far will that get us? You know, so I think Belinda's right to say, well, actually, will anything actually happen as a consequence? And when I made this point, you know, to in discussions about the white paper, you know, what the officials will say is, well, you know, if CQC says the same thing often enough, it might make a difference. But I mean, CQC at the moment is struggling to inspect providers on a sort of regular timescale. So it's a bit unclear where the resource is going to come from to do this as well, and whether the people involved are going to have the right skills and even what they're going to be looking at, because so far they haven't really engaged with us in talking in that assurance framework. There have been lots of conversations between CQC and local government. And I think in home care, you know, what we see often is not enough attention on what happens over the whole lifetime of a contract. So a council may drive the fee rates down to rock bottom to begin with and feel very clever for allegedly achieving good value for money. But then, you know, 6 months later or a year later, half the providers fall off a log because they haven't got enough money to keep going. And then they end up spot purchasing at massive cost. And, you know, the staff turnover increases. It probably ends up costing more, and importantly, results in a lot of disruption of service for people receiving care. And their needs are not really considered at the heart of it. It's all about reducing cost. So who's really looking at that? And who, you know, if you look at the CQC provider regime, at least they've described what good looks like. Has anybody described what good commissioning or outstanding commissioning and purchase of services looks like? I haven't seen anything.
So this is where I had a little look through the white paper again, and I noticed that they wanted to create so CQC were going to use a single assessment framework, and what government want to do is to work with people like TLAP, like National Voices and others, providers and local authorities, to set out what this single assessment framework will be and what it's going to include. So I guess what we need to do is either keep an eye out for this and ask them about this in our meetings with them, to say, what is this framework? Why haven't I heard about it? And can I put my 2-penny piece worth in trying to structure it? But whether that's going to happen, I don't know. But it's in there. Melanie, I feel like you'll have some views on CQC oversight of local authorities.
Thanks, Sophie. I think that a lot of what Jane said. I think one of the things that concerned me when I had it explained to me was that they were talking about assurance and support. So if a local authority is struggling, they will bring in support to help them. If a provider is struggling, that's not what they do. So I think we need a level playing field. I think support for struggling providers would be better than the way they work now. But what we can't have is sanctions and punitive measures against providers when they struggle, and the local authority, who may actually be the root cause of some of that struggling, is going to get lots of support. I don't think that feels fair, unless they're using the word support in the way that the NHS regulators use the word support, which actually means fairly stringent oversight. So again, we need the more details, don't we? Do we mean a cozy chat that says you really should do better? Or do we need some teeth that will actually make things better? And I'd love to know how many experts by experience they're going to employ in those investigations. And they need to be both providers and people who draw on the services, because providers are the people who experience their commissioning behaviours, and people who use the services are the end users. So I think there's more to be heard. And hopefully when the details come out, both Jane and I will feel that our concerns were answered, and actually it's going to be much more useful than it looks at the moment.
We had quite a few questions come in, and I really appreciate those questions. We can't answer all of them or ask all of them, but somebody asked about small providers and how are they going to be protected or supported. I'm going to just come back to you, Jane, on the small providers one, because obviously you will deal with a lot of small providers. Do you see that there might be a problem that small providers and their needs or their voices might be lost in this?
It was the question in relation to the white paper altogether, or to the CQC question?
I think I'm not sure it was really specified, so you can pick how you want to answer this one.
I think it's important to remember that about 85% of the market is small providers, and everybody in DHSC and CQC, they do understand that. And I'm not sure how much, like I said, the CQC regime seems to be something being cooked up by CQC, DHSC and local government at the moment, and we are trying to influence that. Hopefully that will happen. In terms of the white paper overall, I think there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done just generally to implement it, and it's very sort of high level vision without much in the way of practical implementation plans at the moment. So there'll be plenty of opportunity, I think, to contribute through associations like the local care associations and national associations like ours, and directly through the councils and so on, and NHS commissioners.
Thank you for that, Jane. And Raina, I want to come to you on a slightly different topic, just on your highlights from the white paper and anything that you thought was going to be really positive, and anything that you're really struggling with, or is it mainly stuff that you're struggling with?
I don't think I'm struggling with anything. I think, like everyone's saying, I think the aspirations aren't particularly new, and they're certainly ones that I would support. I think the whole thread through from what we've discussed here through to the workforce elements are just the resource, the capacity behind it. And it's all very well having better oversight, and it's all very well having the intent stated clearer in a 10-year plan. If you're not pumping in the resources that change that fundamentally, then which I don't think there's enough of, there's just not enough behind it to assure of the intent. So I suppose it feels just hollow, which I think kind of aligns with what others are saying, really. So there's nothing to, it places people at the heart of it. It talks about strengthening workforce. It talks about people having choice who draw on services. It talks about better information for the public. It talks about a better profile of social care. It talks about, some oversight from a system perspective. But, as others have said, it doesn't feel tangible enough and detailed enough to make me feel confident that any of it will happen, I suppose. And then, and some of the aspects that are meaningful, I think, again, as others have said, if they'd only implemented and monitored the Care Act better, we wouldn't probably need another white paper, because we'd be sitting here having, and we've sat time and time again and said, why can't they just enforce some of the aspects and better monitor it? So good in terms of public political attention and focus, good in intent, and there isn't anything that particularly, the market intervention worries me slightly as a provider, that potential for messing with the market, which again is on one hand, claiming to be about innovation and choice, but similarly to some of the debacle around direct payments, I don't believe that. I don't believe that as an ex-direct care worker. I don't believe that as an ex-social worker. I don't believe it as an ex-inspector, and I don't believe it as a private provider and now someone who's caring for a family member. I don't think that intent is genuine and able to be realised, and I fear that some of this is going to be just about, still not about choice and control, but about saving money, that we're going to be spending more money, more public money on administration of things rather than delivering them and supporting, and that what gets given as advice and guidance now by brochures stuffed in a pack with a list of providers in your area, or just be on a website instead. So it's a bit like, is that really going forward? That sounds really pessimistic, sorry.
Yes, it does. But I got a feeling that is the temperature of where everybody is at the moment, to be honest with you. And I think we're all a little bit exhausted, and we're tired from everything that's gone on. And then we get this white paper, which has wonderful press release and sounds all fantastic. And if you don't work in the sector, you think, you know, the headlines sound really good, really positive, using the right language. But then when you look at the detail, there's still a long way to go. And I feel like when we get to 2025 or the end of this period, we'll just have a lot of good scoping, but will we have that much change? I know we're running a bit over on this section, but I think I'd like to go back to Belinda, but also I want to go on to workforce. So if we could spend some time thinking about workforce after we've heard back from Belinda. Yes, come in, Belinda.
I can't be on for much longer, so I just wanted to say, going on from what Raina has said, that I think she's come close to putting her finger on what somebody described to me recently on another blog as the fundamental deceit running through the whole of the adult social care system. And that made me feel better, because if there is a fundamental deceit, I don't feel so bad about being a lawyer who can't enforce anybody's rights. And I therefore, I stopped beating myself up quite so much. But what the person who was talking to me meant was that from the very top of the system down to the bottom, there is a deceit that adult social care is not just properly structured in terms of allocation and entitlement in the statute, but that it is also properly funded, and that therefore there is a chance to get what Parliament has said that people should get. But the deceit is, and the man said this publicly, that the Treasury is of the view that housing wealth should pay for people's care, and therefore systematically and persistently underfunds local authorities so that they cannot conceivably begin to do what the Care Act says they must. So everybody then has to become corrupted and deprofessionalized and made ignorant about the framework that they're working under in order to be able to face going to work to do what they do, which is to decide who needs what and how much of anything is even conceivably enough. And that's for older people, but for working age people, the Treasury thinks that the DWP system enables people to pay for their care through the benefit system. So if we call out that there's a fundamental deceit running through the system, then actually it becomes an election issue. And if government says nothing about 49 out of 150 councils not being able to do the job, if government says nothing about it, it simply underlines that the only way to enforce your rights is through judicial review, and the legal aid system is broken as well. And having put it that way, not just pessimistically, but concisely and assertively, I am just thinking airtime for social care and how it has been allowed to sleepwalk into becoming derailed is the only thing that matters now for saving it.
Okay, so some really strong words there, as you would expect from Belinda Schwehr, if you've watched any of our other live streams with you.
Got nothing to lose.
But straight talking, and I appreciate that. I wonder if anybody wanted to come back on Belinda's comments. Otherwise, we will move on to a quick 5 minutes on workforce. Jane, is that you?
Yeah, I do actually, because it's funny you should use that word. I described what some of the proposals to the Department of Health the other day as a big consumer scam. Same thing, so Raina's worried about the introduction of Section 18(3) particularly on the impact on care homes, and the reality is that the amount of money that the government has put forward for that is nowhere near enough to remove the cross subsidy or the differential between what state funders, what councils pay and what private payers have to pay. And in the absence of enough money, it's either dangerous because it means that the care providers won't have enough funds to keep themselves afloat, or more likely the consumers are going to have to carry on paying top-ups to quite a substantial extent. And anyway, you know, the amount of the money available only covers actual care costs, not all of the costs of accommodation and food and all of those other things. So I just think the government is relying on the fact that the public doesn't understand. And yeah, so I do think it is quite deceitful as well.
And actually, I don't know if we can pull it up. We did have someone put in a question about, and it's talked about in the white paper, a fair cost of care. A fair cost of care. And I was really interested with that language, not an actual, but a fair. And what does fair mean, and from whose perspective, I think is quite subjective. So I think in discussions, you know, we have, or debates, if we have any discussions with policymakers, we need to understand what is that fair cost of care. Thank you. So from Catherine N, you know, what do you panelists see as key issues in implementing the fair cost of care? Maybe we will just touch on that briefly before coming on to staff. And I think, Melanie, did you want to come in on that or anything else? One second, I'll just see if I can unmute you. There we are. Yeah. Unmute. Has that worked? You may need, there we are.
Better, thank you. Yes, and before I come into that, I think the biggest deceit is the one around choice and control. Throughout the white paper and everything around, we talk about the importance of choice and control for the individual who uses our services. And I'm sure we would all on this panel agree that that is vital. But I don't think in the confines of the white paper and the funding that goes with it, we're not offering choice and control except to the wealthiest in the country. And that's not what I thought. That's not why I joined adult social care. I think what is important is that the least well off and the most vulnerable have choice and control. And I think that will get worse once the white paper is implemented rather than better. And that makes me really sad.
Why do you think that? What in the white paper makes you think that specifically?
Because I think, and it goes on to the fair cost of care, I don't see any suggestion that national government is going to fund local government in a way that allows them to pay the fair cost of care for all of the service users. Everybody knows that self-funders, particularly in the residential market, subsidise those who are commissioned by the local authority. I've been involved with legal actions that Belinda's taken in a different life, trying to show that. And even though you don't always manage to get a higher fee, you can always prove that actually what is paid by the local authority is cross-subsidised by the self-funder. That will go away if there's a fair cost of care, or it will be much more difficult. And that's the right thing to do if there was enough funding behind it, because it isn't right that people should pay for each other's care. There should be enough money there to pay for a dignified lifestyle as we get older, or for those people who are unfortunate enough to need help through their lives. If you want, as I heard someone say last week, gold taps and an ocean view, then go ahead and pay for that, because that's not something I should be paying for as a taxpayer or as a ratepayer. But a decent standard of living provided by people who are paid enough to have a decent standard of living. Surely in 2020, in a civilized country, is a basic thing that we should be looking for. And I don't see anything in this white paper that is going to take us closer towards that. And that makes me really sad.
Thank you for sharing that. Really interesting points and poignant points, I think, as well. I'm going to canter through to workforce policies, and then we might just mess around with our plan, because I've kind of had a bit more of an in-depth discussion with you all. So I might then go to Isaac and then leave it at that, because we've kind of front-ended a lot of stuff. So workforce skills, So this is the kind of matrix that they have up, and they're going to create a knowledge and skills framework and a career structure with the money which is going to be provided. And this is I'm going to go back to what they talk about. So at least £500 million so that the social care workforce have the right training and qualifications and feel recognised and valued for their skills and commitment. And they want to prioritise well-being, which is not so shabby, a priority. Then if you look at what's being proposed, I know this is very small, it's all in there, but I'll just read the main things. So a knowledge and skills framework is going to be created, and that's to create some career pathways, funding for the care certificate, CPD, but not for care workers, for nursing associates, occupational therapists and other allied health professionals. A bit more in training, and quite a lot of focus on digital, a digital hub for workforce access, support, information, advice, and a portable record of learning. And I thought the digital hub was specifically interesting simply because when you read through it a little bit more, the digital hub is going to be voluntary to start off with, where care workers will sign up to it, and then I think that's going to be used as the basis to form some kind of care worker registration going forward. So then all care workers will have to be registered. So that's how I read into it. And obviously that there's the 500 million then. It sounds like a lot of money, but I think the workforce may be asking for more than just a formalised version of the care certificate. Raina, can I come to you first? Do you think there's enough on offer for the workforce in the white paper?
No. No, there's not. I mean, it's a little bit like we're saying with the whole lot. There's not enough resources behind it. I shudder a bit when they talk about new interventions and best practice policies to do with recruitment and local, we've tried the portability stuff with the certificate before, and it's not to say we shouldn't try again. It would be immensely helpful if we could crack that one, but I'm not sure we will. The digital the hub and information, we've got some really good resources in social care. I mean, we have got some good kind of skills resources, learning resources, access to things that can be used now. I mean, I might feel different than smaller providers on this because, again, it's about let us have the resources, let us have the framework in delivering care in partnership with local authorities and CCGs that enables us to pay well, to give people terms and conditions that they want, to give a range of those that meet different people's needs. Pay us enough so that people can, develop good training and learning and develop. We have got career paths. We've got great career paths, and some aspects of the social care provider market will need more support from either local, regional or central resources than others. So some of that, information support, because it's great not, for micro providers, it's great maybe for PAs and things. So I think access to people for information and learning is immensely important for our sector, and the skills development in line with the needs of people that we're giving care and support to. But again, this is just resource light for the aspiration.
Yeah.
And so half of me feels slightly offended as a larger provider because I think we're doing a lot of this even with the existing resources. If we had more resources to do it even better, it'd be great. I think it kind of I'm really passionate at the moment working with the ICS here in Dorset and looking at the transition for April at the moment around this HE, the Health Education England money coming down, flowing to systems, and the money coming from NHS England, and how we grab some of that into social care and utilise that by joint working and integration and skilling up people and changing that whole system approach. So I feel a bit more passionate about the opportunities there probably than I do with this.
Okay.
It's good in aspiration. I want to end positively because I want to sound
yes.
But, yeah. Aspiration.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, the real problem, Sophie, is that 500 million over 3 years works out at £111 per person per year. And the government talks about professionalising the workforce, whatever that means. I mean, can you find a single training course for that sort of money that's worth anything? It's a little bit laughable.
I am glad you said that, Jane, because I was going to come to you next. I was going to say, if your care provider organisations employ all these care workers, if you're a care worker, reading through the detail of what that 500 million is going to give you, are you going to feel enthused by it or not? And I would feel a little bit demoralized by it. Really good question we had come in again by Sam H. Bit of a long one, but the long and the short of it is the disparity between the NHS and social care. And I always use the example of being a nurse. No one retires as a nurse and everyone says, oh, you were just a nurse. People accept that you will have pay grades that go up throughout your as a nurse, and I know it's very different industries, but they do the same sort of thing in terms of supporting people. And I just think that what the white paper does, it talks a lot about progression and moving on, but I think what we need to talk about is a care worker starting as care worker, retiring as a care worker, but still able to hold the family down because they're paid enough throughout their career. And I don't feel that comes through in the white paper. We have to unfortunately leave it there, ladies, but I will say we've just heard from Jane and Raina. And Melanie, did you have any final thoughts?
I think just a final thought. I think it's good that it's recognised that the care profession is a profession. I don't think they need to professionalise the care sector. I think they need to recognise the professionalism of the care. At least, if not least, there are 34,000 nurses in the care sector. They don't need to be professionalised. And a lot of our care workers act, and my definition of a professional has always been that you take accountability for your actions, and most of our workforce already do that. But again, 500 million isn't going to go very far, but I suppose it's a start. I think we have to get behind it. There are lots of opportunities to actually get your fingers into that pie because they don't really know what they need to do with the 500 million. And my plea to everybody watching this, if you see the slightest opportunity to join a workshop or a consultation about what do we do to make that reality, it's not too late. Jane and I have sat looking at each other on the screen for many hours talking about it, but nothing's set in stone. So please, please, please put your 2 pence in, because as Raina says, lots of us can do this. We are doing it. The quality of care out there is not universally rubbish. So we must be quite good at training our staff. So maybe we just need to tell the DH, this is what we've already got. This is where we need a little bit more money. And this is where we need to do something totally different. So that's my call to action, please.
Thank you. It's a brilliant call to action. I wish I could end on that, but I do want to come back to Belinda. I'm scared she's going to bring the tone down, but
I'm not. I'm going to say that, social care is used indistinguishably from social services. And I would say that social work training needs to have a re-injection of a proper understanding of the Care Act in it. When the government needed to teach the NHS about how not to give anybody continuing NHS healthcare, they bought a programme for access only by NHS people. There is nothing preventing a Care Act course being produced online, which every adult social services aspiring social worker has to do. And it could be done nationally because the Care Act applies to the whole of England. Yes, there's no assessment form that's standard, there's no care plan form that's standard, but there's regulations, there's law, there's a learning curve, and there's some principles. But it doesn't suit the great and good, the people who've made up 3 conversations, for instance, and therefore it wouldn't suit TLAP, who thinks that streamlining assessment is a jolly good thing. So it is offensive to some people to think that they need to be taught the legal framework. And I would say, well, if that's the way you want to go, it will be continuously dumbed down.
So just remembering there's a legal framework, and maybe we just all need to make sure we understand it a bit more and understand what there is out there already as well. And then a message from Melanie to say, get out there, get involved. I know there's if you're in a forum, if people are crying out for people's views, just get out there and just, even if it's a 1 line, 2 line, just say what's going on in your world, because it's a minefield, I think, for the policymakers, and they just need to know all the good practice that's out there. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate you coming on here. And we've had some great engagement and comments in the chat. So do take care. Have a lovely evening, and we'll say goodbye to you for now. Bye, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Great. So that was a really good conversation, slightly different from what we were hoping to do in terms of our plan, but you guys didn't know about that, so that's fine. I'm going to go straight ahead and bring in Isaac. And it's just so wonderful to see you, Isaac. And I know you're going to have some really positive things to say about it. And I think what I drew out from it as well is not only to see the one and only Isaac Samuels represented in the white paper, and a really, really interesting story. And there were some really good examples that were drawn out in the white paper. And I do encourage people to look at that. And obviously there's a little overlay here of some of the overarching ideas that they have for people who are involved specifically. We can talk about anything, Isaac, but I'm just drawing this bit because it was near your section. Improving information and advice, empowering unpaid carers, supporting autistic people and people with a disability into employment. And this is ever so tiny, but just some of the figures on investment. So 5 million to test and evaluate new ways to help people navigate the local adult social care systems, 25 million to work with the sector to kickstart a change in services provided to support unpaid carers. And there's some other interesting bits there as well, but it's all in there. I want to know, Isaac, how did you get involved in this? Was this through one of the many roles that you hold at the moment?
Yes. So as a person with lived experience, the reason I turn up to events like this, because we live in hope that something will be different, and we're always here to share our experiences of our kind of, receiving care. So for me, every opportunity is an opportunity to make a difference. There is definitely a difference that needs to happen. I know that where I live, the local authority chooses to behave in a way that is quite adversarial with people that draw on care and support. I hear stories where people are not getting their basic needs met, and it just breaks my heart, because I think together we need to have a better care system for everybody that works for those with learning disability, mental health challenges, older people. And at the heart of that needs to be people living an independent life with choice and control, and being able to access real good quality care that is person-centered. And it's true to say that even in my personal life, I support a friend of mine, and he's often left, without care because of the problems that we have in social care at the moment. So the white paper may not be perfect, but it's something to really help us focus on what's needed for people like me. And the emphasis on choice and control and independence is so important. We've had the Care Act, now we have the white paper, and we that draw on care and support, and those that support us, and particularly unpaid carers, we only have these pieces of and these opportunities. So the legislation and the white paper is an opportunity to not only spotlight social care, but really a time and opportunity for us to try to influence that. Because what's happening across the country at the moment is that some people are receiving okay care, some people are receiving good care, and some people are receiving really not so good care. And we want actually everyone that needs care and support to receive really great care, so they have really great lives, and they are able to live as independently as they want.
That is amazing to hear, actually, your perspective, because I think For a care, we've heard just at the top of this talk a lot from care providers and what we'd hoped and what didn't quite work out. But actually, when you are somebody who is living and breathing care and receiving it, just to be heard and to know that your voice is being represented is just so. I can only imagine it's just so positive. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised by the voices that were in the white papers you had talking about people like TLAP and organisations that you have worked with as well. And I suppose it's just making sure that goes from conversations with the right people to actually policies that are going to make some kind of positive change. And do you feel positive from some of the policies that have come out and some of the support that's being suggested?
The thing that I feel most positive about is the fact that there is explicit reference to working with people and their families around the implementation, and people like me know what's best for I know what's best for me. People that support me know what's best for me, and we need to be central to those conversations about meaningful lives. TLAP and the National Co-Production Advisory Group will always try to be that critical friend to the Department of Health and Social Care, because actually this is not about party politics, this is about people's lives. We have to try to influence social care that everybody that needs it can get it. It's available, it's of good quality, and any opportunity is an opportunity to try to influence that. I hold many of the same views as the other kind of panelists. However, as someone that draws on social care, and I'm going to get older and I'm going to need probably more social care, we need to do everything to influence it so it meets those needs.
Absolutely. And I suppose it goes back to the question of making sure that people do respond to any consultation that's out there or anything where they can put their voice to something. So we've got a question. Yeah, did you want to come back?
So Natasha's question is a really important
Yeah.
question. So Natasha's question, so as a person that accesses health, social care, and all of these different professionals coming to my life, it would be nice to be able to tell your story once and for people to work around an individual. So a simple way of assessing people would be great. Doing that once would be great. Do I think that will happen in the long term? I hope so. Is it possible? I believe so. Will it make a difference? I don't want to be telling my story multiple times to multiple people. I want to tell my story once. I want people to listen to that, and I want them to respond collectively. So health and social care, it doesn't matter who's supporting me. If they work together, it works. When we have those fights around who's paying for what, it just doesn't work. You can't split a person between often health and social care, housing, and all of those other things that we need to live good lives. So in answer to Natasha's question, I would love to see a single assessment. I would love to see more emphasis on co-producing care and support plans. I would like to see more emphasis on, supporting people with a wide range of support needs.
Absolutely. And one thing I was wondering, that we've got a question that we had submitted before, and that's around what are the implications around the proposal to explore direct payments to be used to pay for families providing respite care? That's Susanna G put that in a pre-submitted question. Did you have any thoughts on that?
If we had a relationship between local government and direct payment recipients, which was one based on trust, there would be no issue about paying families. In COVID, there has been some relaxation of those rules. It makes absolute sense to me that you should be able to pay a family member to provide care, because they often provide care anyway. They know the individual. I think we need to look at all of the options on the table and really support those. For me, families have gone above and beyond during COVID, and it's been a really good example of where it's worked really well. I think we need to be cautious at times with, how that looks, and the person needs to stay central to that. But if I choose a family member to support me and that's the best fit for me, then it should be possible. We shouldn't have this whole thing around mistrusting families and paying families, and often it feels like there's that very adversarial relationship between those that draw on direct payments and the local authority. The other thing I would say about direct payments is they've been life-changing for me, but actually they don't work for everybody. Some people might want a individual service fund where it's much more manageable. Other people might want a traditional package. Whatever care and support you have, it has to be of good quality, has to be around enabling you to live a meaningful life. And as long as we commission care and support on that 15 minutes and we don't think about the outcomes that matter to people, then what we'll be doing is creating a care system across all of the different parts of the care system that doesn't work. It has to be about dignity, respect and quality.
Are you quite how do you feel about the new oversight that CQC is going to have on local authorities? Do you think that will make a difference to people who draw on care and support?
I hope so. I think there's been a lot of work that CQC has been doing, particularly around using the I and we statements to look at how they will inspect services. I think everything that the CQC does, it has to be about what it matters to people, what is good quality care for people. I think they need to have a real emphasis on standing up for people and organisations and really challenging back. If you want good care, you have to pay for it. You have to create the right conditions. And actually, when it doesn't work well, you need to say it's not working well.
Absolutely. And that actually dovetails into a couple of things that people are putting in the chat here. Natasha's then I'll just cover two of them actually, because I think they dovetail. So do you feel that you have enough say in market shaping? And obviously there's some stuff like of that in the white paper. But also, someone's also putting the point about it's about workforce. And your piece that was kind of drawn into the white paper was how you were able to approach and you had a really good relationship with the person that supported you. So you were actually quite a high quality employer, I would say. But I feel like some organizations struggle to give that support to their workforce. And obviously it's that workforce, which is the direct contact to people who are drawing on that support. So do you think that the kind of the market and the workforce almost dovetail a little bit together? What do you think there's enough for the workforce?
I get quite excited when we talk about market shaping. So in the Eastern region, they've done a lot of work with pulling together people with lived experience and commissioners and the local authorities across the region to look at what are the priorities, how do they make sense to people, and how do people inform those priorities. So I think, if the Eastern region can do it, all of the regions should be doing it. And I think that people need to be at the heart of not only telling the system what's needed in those different regions in terms of what the market should look like, what it should feel like, what's the quality, what kind of things need to be in place for people to access really good quality care. I think it's so doable. In terms of the question around being a good employer, it's really difficult to be a good employer if you don't have enough resource in your budget. So I'm really fortunate that I kind of know a lot of people and I can send my PA on training and I try to tap into all of that stuff. But it's really challenging. I think if you look at my PA's salary rate compared to someone that works at McDonald's, my PA's paid less and has more terms and conditions working for McDonald's than they would do for me. I think it's really important that we that draw on care and support look after our workforce, because if they're not looked after, they can't look after us. We need to invest in them, because then they stay. We need to give them opportunities, because actually people with opportunities, their well-being is, I can't tell you, having these kind of well-being meetings with my PAs just has meant that we can look at some of the challenges and problems that arise from everyday kind of supporting people and overcoming those challenges. So I love the social care workforce, and I think we need to invest in it. I think it needs parity of esteem, like its counterpart in the NHS, and they have shown us during COVID that they go above and beyond, and we need to continue to attract new people into that. We need to be responsive to the needs of the workforce, and actually, what can we learn from the workforce? What better to support someone living their best life? That's an amazing job.
Absolutely. You said it. What he said, people, what he said. One thing I would say, what you talking about that market shaping, and I love that. Thank you for that question. I feel that there's a lots of routes in for providers, and maybe some, no, actually there isn't for staff, but for providers to feed in their idea about market shaping. There isn't as many routes, or there aren't as many routes for people who draw on health and social care to feed in their views about market shaping. And I think that's something that definitely needs to develop. Equally, on the second part of what you were saying, we need to really make sure that we're doing what's right for care workers. And I think that's where this white paper falls short, because if I was a care worker, I would look at that and think, I can't really see what's there for me. I can see there's really nice words, but the wellbeing stuff, there's loads of links out there already that people have been working over the pandemic to provide wellbeing support. Where are the routes directly to care workers and their views that don't necessarily have to go through care providers? And that's why we did a live stream with unions, but I don't feel like unions are doing enough to reach out to our workforce either. And I worry that the workforce's view and voice is lost in all of this reform. And also that the people who draw on support is, they capture it through wonderful advocates like yourself, but there's just such a huge array. You can't speak for anyone, and you wouldn't claim to everyone, and you wouldn't claim to. So, but having said that, I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your experience, because always really enthused by your passion, your positivity, and your ideas as well. And I'm just so glad you are in that position where people are listening to you, and hopefully they take more of what you're saying on board. But before we leave you, is there anything last kind of thoughts or reflections that you wanted to put forward?
Sure. And like the previous panelist, I would say to anybody that had an opportunity to work on a local and national, regional level to make some of this stuff happen, do so. It's a great opportunity. People like myself need really good care and support to live an independent life. We have an opportunity to make a difference, and we need to all be working together, because actually we need a society where people are able to live those independent lives. There are going to be some challenges, but we need to work together to overcome those, because the consequence of us not doing so is terrible. It will mean people stuck in their beds with no care. It will mean people not living their potentials, and that's too much for people like me to even contemplate. So we live in hope. We need your help. We need you to champion this idea and these behaviors around co-production, and we need you to help us make sure that the government are providing adequate support on a national and a local level to people like me.
That's a wonderful note to end on. And someone's just done the hashtag what he said. I definitely will be isolating that bit of what you said and trying to get that trending. But thank you so much, Isaac. You've been absolutely wonderful. You really are feeding into something that I want to mention to everyone just now before we have some reflections ourselves. But you're free to go. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Hopefully catch up with you soon, and take care.
Take care, and thank you everyone for all your hard work.
Thank you. Bye now. Lovely. Okay, so like I said, it was wonderful actually to hear a few of our guests talking about putting our voice forward, and there are a few ways in which you can put your voice forward. So 2022 is going to be quite a big year for the government giving out consultations, so asking for people's views on anything they want to put forward. So there's a lot in the white paper, and I haven't gone through and read it all and gone through every single bit of it, but there's an executive summary. There's specific things that they are going to work through to try and implement on the white paper, trying to get that through. So you're going to have opportunities, you're going to have consultations that are going to come out, they're going to come under the radar, you're not going to know about them, and they're going to go probably poof away, and then we won't get all your views if you work in the care sector, if you draw on health and social care. But if you know about them, then you can respond to them. So one of them, haven't given you much time, 2 days, is not connected specifically with the white paper, but it's still people who will be listening to you in high places. And that's by the Health and Social Care Select Committee. They are wanting to find people's views for their inquiry on workforce, specifically recruitment, training and retention in health and social care. And they are, that is what it says really there. So what you can do, and I think people might see that and think, goodness me, 2 days, I haven't got time for that. But you do have time to send a quick email. Maybe you're in, just before you go to bed, you just want to send something quick. I don't really think it matters how you get your views across. I think if you just have a quick look at the Health and Social Care Select Committee, just Google it and probably put in workforce and inquiry, it will come up. And you can basically, just from your from your perspective, whether you are a person who uses care or if you are somebody who works in social care at any level, put in what, especially over the Christmas, because I find Christmas and New Year is just tough for our sector. We are really worked ragged. And that affects not only the people who work in it, but that affects people who are being supported. You see the stresses and the strains, and maybe you struggle to get the right support that you needed. So I think if you could respond to that inquiry, and you never know, they might ask you for an interview, and your views might be even more platformed. So that's one consultation I can let you know about. The next one is a consultation which covers healthcare. So it's health and care, I would say, and it's quite a long one, but you've got time. You've got until the end of March to respond to this one, and this is being led by the Department of Health and Social Care, and they are looking at statutory regulation, whether that's appropriate. So if you read the detail on that, it's not just about social care, it's about lots. So some of it you won't feel is particularly relevant. It might be talking about occupational therapists or social workers. But that one I think is a biggie, because I think that might be evidence they might draw from the evidence they get from this consultation as to whether social care should be regulated, yes or no. But if nobody in social care knows that this consultation is going on, then we're not going to respond to it, and then they're going to just they're going to probably not be influenced by some of our views, obviously, if we don't respond to it. So I would really encourage people, have we got links? Oh yeah, we have, to just maybe in your teams at the end of a team meeting, maybe, I know resources and time is really low, but I just really think we should be trying to get our voices out there, and try and respond to it. But if you're struggling with it, you haven't got the headspace, you're busy, you're tired, well, Coproduce Care, we are going to try and do some workshops. We've got a bit longer for this one, so stay tuned with us. You can follow us on Twitter. The best bet is just go onto our website and just sign up, subscribe to our newsletter. We're not going to flood you with lots of stuff, but we will just give you the heads up of when we're going to do like a webinar on responding to these consultations, and then we'll do a joint response to the DHSC on this. So that takes out the difficult issue. If you go through all the questions, we can just summarize it for you if you interact with us. So we're going to try and make it as easy and accessible as possible. So that's another reason to check us out and keep involved with what we're doing. So we're not actually probably going to come back here again until March, doing another live stream, unless there's some crazy announcement for social care. But do subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. If you are on Facebook, like and follow our page, and do engage with all the material that I went through at the top of the live stream. So I'm going to bring in my my colleague Arnie. We've only got a couple of minutes, but just to reflect a little bit on what we've heard. Arnie's been doing a huge amount of work for us at Coproduce Care the last few years. You were there in our inception in 2019. And obviously, as we've been doing these live streams, and this will be your last one because you're leaving us to do better things. So I really
There's nothing better. There's nothing better.
Oh, that's the right thing to say, Arnie. Well done. So yes, I'd love to hear your views and reflections on what we've just heard. And just to let you know, if you haven't, Arnie's been on our live streams before and leading some other projects, but Arnie does get involved with our policy and helps write our consultation responses if we're doing one as well. So you're kind of in that headspace of everything we've been discussing on previous live streams. But from watching it, what are your perspectives?
Yeah, we'll have to go on from watching the incredible session we've had there with some really fantastic guests, because every layer there, from the legal through the operational, sort of even people accessing care, every level of that was explained really, really well via sort of issues of the lip service, the things we want to hear, not actually being backed up by the money, the changes, or the sort of detail that means that those sort of empowering social care changes actually happen. We're all really, really well put. I'm actually going on a slight downer, I think, because of that session. What we saw there was not only, you know, the sort of truth of a white paper being seen so clearly beyond the sort of promises of the executive summary of workforce and personalization, which, you know, to the T are worded exactly towards what we want to hear. But what we've got here is everybody in social care understanding that it's not only not there, but seeing it as deceitful, seeing it as a sort of distraction away from actual genuine change, and to see, you know, really, really clear comments, really, really good examples of why this won't work, why it hasn't worked, all this, but still feeling as though there's a huge gap between us and that decision making, really, really has driven home the importance of the stuff we do here at Coproduce Care, just to try and make it in any way more accessible, to feel like your voice can be heard. Because, you know, as Sophie, you're very aware, this year is where those changes will bite a bit more, and until people feel as though they are listened to, then just seeing the links to health in the workforce, as though there would be no option, that no one would want a long career in care. The only way they could imagine promotion and long-term working is to go across to health. That's the wrong way. That's not what anyone wants to be hearing after 2 years of this. They want to know, you know, it's recognition, reward, long-term support, all of this, diverse options and things like that are exactly what we've had people talking about for ages. But the sort of disconnect from the lip service that's in the language down to what's actually going to practically change when we've got people here, you know, pointing that out is the most disheartening thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear things like, if you're going to do a career progression, if you're going to support people with it, obviously raising the minimum wage is really positive. But then there's that disparity then that bumps all the costs up, because if you are on the minimum wage is raised, then everything has a knock-on effect for all of the different levels in social care as well. So how is that going to be supported, and how is that going to be paid for? And what I always say to people, if I do get anyone's ear, is really to think about how the workforce are being rewarded and recognised, because they're tired and there's no end to it, and COVID has made social care a very different environment to work in. I mean, I'm in the office now, but I'm on my own, so I don't have to wear a mask. But if I was with somebody, I'd have to wear a mask. I mean, that is just a fact of their life, fair enough, but there's huge amounts of PPE that people have to work under. There's loads of different regulation changes, there's different ways of working, and actually the care, I would say social care is massively it's really changed, it's really professionalized, and it's brought the difference between people who are in like a healthcare profession in health and position in health and in care. The disparity is quite not that different anymore, and I think that's where the parity between health and social care should be really in the workforce should be recognised a bit more. But I just felt generally disheartened. But I just didn't think it was. I just think it was enough. I mean, it's just it's making all the right sounds, but when you look at the detail of it, it's talking about standardising the care certificate. This care certificate's been around for years, and making it portable. I mean, and I was really disappointed in what there was for care workers. I love the fact there's more involvement of people with, well, they say with lived experience. The whole thing was the CQC and that they're regulating local authorities. When you look at what they're really looking at, they're just looking at how well they're working with IPCs. Not, is that really what we want to regulate? Isn't it? We want to regulate that they're actually working across the board to make sure that there's a standard of care, that's support that's being commissioned, and that the rates are being paid in a way that allows people to have care that is dignified. I didn't hear much talk about dignity, or didn't read much about dignity and people's quality of life. So I don't know. I was a bit disappointed, as with the other panelists, really. I think that they were all a bit more disappointed than I actually expected. But I just, it was a little bit sad.
It's not like they've had a go, missed the mark, and that's a shame. They've carefully worded it to make it sound as though they're hitting all the targets that people really, really want, and don't just want, but are pretty crucial right now. If they weren't 2 years ago anyway, let alone 2 years of the pandemic, of putting those pressures even harder on everybody, than to not have the people listened to in the ways those changes need to actually happen, and to feel sort of sold something that's not going to work is particularly disheartening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just hope that people will respond. And I think one thing I didn't mention earlier was people need to get in contact with their MPs and just also put forward their views. And that's something that we'll be prompting people to do through our, when people subscribe, we'll just send out a quick email saying they're discussing X, Y, and Z in Parliament next week. And it's to do with social care. Please just, because obviously elected officials, that's what they're there to do, is to represent their constituents. And if you are someone who uses health and social care, if you are somebody who works in the sector, then that's one way of getting your voice heard as well. So I think we just need to use the democratic means by which that are available to us to actually get our voices heard a bit more, so we can have no more rubbish policies, please. I actually have a Facebook group that's called that. So I think that is a really good reflection, and I think that's pretty much everything from us this evening, unless you've had any other thoughts, Arnie.
Just that we are called Coproduce Care. It's what we've started to do, and what we'll always do, is to make sure that from the ground up is where at least the voice comes from, even if no one listens to us. But a really, really great session, some really great analysis from everybody this evening.
Absolutely. And what I would say, I know we obviously know that we need more in social care. People are listening. This is the year of consultations, of the government listening, because they want to try and get at least some things right. So it is the time to let your voice be heard in any way, through those channels where they have an obligation to respond. So definitely people just need to keep an eye on everything we're doing. And then, of course, a huge thank you to you, Arnie, for all your work you've been doing with Coproduce Care. Absolutely been fantastic, a roller coaster and all sorts. So I thought I'd just use this. I didn't plan it, sorry, but I will do just say a huge thank you here to you and everything that you're doing. And you're okay to share with people what you'll be doing after Coproduce Care?
I suppose so. I'm just going to take a little break. I feel a little bit strange saying I need a break when I've been sat very comfortably behind a computer arguing via typing for the last 2 years. But bit of headspace from central city lockdown life and everything like that. I'll do a big cycle across the UK, so hopefully I'll make it to the other side.
There we go. Incredible. Well, you'll have to keep us updated with your travels. But thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to us. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And we will see you again in our next live stream, which hopefully won't be too long away from now. So take care, everybody, and stay safe.